Welcome in, McElroy and Cubelic in the morning, 7 a.m. Friday, May 15th. We made it to Friday. If you've had a week like mine, that is an accomplishment in and of itself. 2014 playoff not going to go away. I feel like we talked about it all week. I feel like it's been the biggest part of our conversations this entire week, and we will continue to discuss it today. Also, Wilson Alexander going to join us at 7:40. He recently had a sit-down with Lane Kiffin. What was that like? Some of the comments that Lane Kiffin made after the Vogue interview. Is it Vogue? Vanity Fair.
Yeah.
It's all the what?
You're correct, right?
It's the same.
It's like Gap, Old Navy. I mean, they're right. Yeah, it's either that or
Hold
National.
on now. Gap and Old Navy a little bit different.
Well, they're owned by the same company, but still, I mean, they're.
Are Vogue and Vanity Fair owned by the same
I
company?
wouldn't be surprised. There's only like 2 publishing places now, so.
Vogue, Vanity Fair, I feel like same target audience.
Yeah, perhaps. Yeah. Probably.
Gap, Old Navy, not so much. When I was in high school, the Gappers weren't shopping at Old Navy.
Oh, well, maybe parents were and then kids were, but yeah.
I mean, the kids were because they could afford it, yeah. But I don't think any of the if you could afford the Gap, you weren't going to Old Navy. Old Navy has been great for kids, though, if you want to buy something for them to wear like once.
Yeah.
Because once you wash it, it's coming undone.
All right, so maybe Gap and Abercrombie.
There you go.
Okay.
That's
Hollister
it.
or whatever.
Hollister, American Eagle.
Yeah.
I feel like are right there the same thing.
Aeropostale, yeah.
Are those all open? Any of those open?
I don't know. I guess malls still exist, so maybe.
I know the Gap is not right there next to Trader Joe's at the Summit anymore.
And Old Navy ain't by the Summit no more.
There is an
either.
Old Navy somewhere, I know. It might be Decatur when we go there, and that's when my wife goes. I don't know. Now, as far as all the other ones we mentioned, Hollister, American Eagle, what was it? Aeropostale? Aeropostale? I never knew what that word was. I just saw it and looked there and saw the jeans that were all cut up and said, nah.
No need.
Those aren't mine. I don't need the flannel button-down shirts that are way too skinny for me.
So Gap and Banana Republic.
Yeah,
That's Vogue and Vanity Fair. Okay.
Oh, I thought you were saying Gap Banana Republic for me, and I was like,
oh, no.
Do I look like I weigh 180?
Maybe kilograms.
I can remember a couple of times like going to look for a shirt at the Gap. Like, golly, this is probably early 2000s. You remember when like the solid colored dress shirts was like that was the sort of businessman, like casual business attire for everyone, and you couldn't find those. It's like a solid navy, solid maroon, and I would go into the Gap and try to look for them. And randomly, you'd find a XX, and the sleeve would stop about right there where that one's pulled up to, and there's no way it was getting tucked in. I'm like, who are these made for? Who wears this? Obviously, kickers and Damien. That's it. Those were the two.
They did have Gap kids.
I think regular Gap would have been fine
before
for
that.
him, before it was made that way. So,
yeah, when I shopped at the Gap, it was always straight to the back. Look at what was in clearance, because that's probably all you could afford.
Yep. And who needed that many pair of khaki pants?
At that point, no.
It was 17 different shades of khaki.
No.
Not 50 shades of gray, 50 shades of khaki. That's what the Gap was.
I in high school, it's like I don't need these.
No one did. Not that many. All right, so 2014 playoff, 800-239-9569. Has your opinion changed on this? Because the support is changing. The support is different. Now Pete Pavacquia is coming out saying that he's in favor of a 2014 college football playoff. Here's the question. Is it best for Notre Dame? Maybe. Is it best for college football? And I think that's maybe where we are right now is we can be frustrated and mad with a lot of these administrators, people in charge, that are throwing this 2014 playoff out because it's best for them. But as we have stated many times, there's no one looking out for the best of college football. There's not a lot of people that are looking out for the greater good of college football and what it should be and maybe what it needs to be. And there's an article up now from Ross Dellinger at Yahoo Sports. The college football playoff ball, as it has been for weeks, is in the SEC's court, 16 or 24. Now, they all have to come together and agree if they're going to go to one or the other. They cannot put all of this pressure, weight, influence behind one side and agree to do it without the Southeastern Conference. That's not going to happen. And the good news is for you that don't want 24, I don't think Greg Sankey caves to any of it until he believes it is the best for his conference in which he is paid to manage and run. Therefore, even if he makes this decision, that is why he would be doing it. You can be mad at him for the greater good of college football, which I do think he attempts to look out for, but that's not what his paychecks are written to do. I don't think he would cave to it. That pressure doesn't really get to him. I don't believe that. I don't think that's a real thing. But there's something that struck me, John, reading this article from Ross Dellinger about how now the Big Ten started this, right?
Correct.
The ACC and Jim Phillips announced this week they're behind it. This is a 2014 playoff. You can tweet it at Mac and Cube. You can be a part of the show there. 800-239-9569. You can be a part of the show on the Higginbotham hotline. Greg not going to be in today or Monday. We apparently do have clips from his podcast, though, that we can listen to. So if we miss him that much, we can just play those.
I guess that means we're not playing them then. All right.
Oh, no. We're going to listen to him, just not in this segment.
Okay. Or with that setup. Okay, yeah.
You can also text in the show 205-834-9450. Now, the Big 12's behind it. So that gives you the ACC, the Big 12, and the Big 10 that are all behind a 2014 playoff with the AFCA. That's a lot of momentum. It's a lot of clout. That's a lot of people with influence that are now pushing for a 2014 playoff. As Ross Dellinger states, it's essentially the SEC's decision. What I would be interested in is how many, where we thought this was going originally, I thought Tony Patini was lobbing this Hail Mary, hoping to come up with a 15-yard reception for a first down. Not so much score the touchdown. I thought he was trying to push this out to 24 so he could land on 16 and say, we got it. Just like Drewski. Got him. We got him. And let everybody think he wanted to get to 24 when originally all he really needed to do was get to 16. But Jim Phillips sort of peeled back the curtain, in my opinion, a little bit too much on this. What do we think first when we think 2014 playoff? It's the first thing that comes to mind. When you think about why. When you think about the ACC, the Big 12, heck, even the Big 10, why do they want this? What's your first thought, John? Just immediately. There's no right or wrong here.
That it'll mean more money for them.
Yeah. Now, Jim Phillips laid out two things that he says that he wants as far as this 2014 playoff, what it's going to do, what it's going to be. Now, we know more revenue is going to be generated. If the SEC's championship game is worth up to 100, the Big Ten's is around 75, the ACC and Big 12s are both around 50. Does an additional 12 games get you that? Because the big tipping point here is going to be the revenue share portion of this. So we know it's going to be more money, but if you divide it evenly and the SEC championship game is worth 100, is the SEC making more money? You would still think probably, but may not be a guarantee. Don't know. So Jim Phillips this week, commissioner of the ACC, his ADs and coaches won a 2014 playoff. He laid out a twofold rationale for why. As John gives me the rock eye.
You have my curiosity about this playoff. Now you have my attention.
The field should be expanded to, one, include bubble teams that are deserving to compete for a national championship. My first response to that is, what?
Mine was, huh? But yeah, same thing.
Why do we need to lay that out? It's a playoff. But that does tell me also that he has to say this because of what he's hearing about what the AQs will be.
In essence, yes.
So if he is hearing information that the Big Ten is going to be good with this, and if the SEC goes to this, they're saying, well, we get 7 each year. Our top 7 teams go. Whatever. Top 8, top 5 of the Big Ten and the SEC. So if it's a 2014 playoff and 16 are from the ACC and the Big Ten, no matter what, Jim's saying, better be some bubble teams in there too now, because if we're only getting 2 or 3, There better be some other ones that if we have teams that look like they deserve a spot to get in, they can still find their way in. Which I'm just going to – you cannot convince me that automatic qualifiers getting into a tournament because of who you are, anyone agrees that's good. It's good for your wallet. It's great. Congrats, by the way. It's essentially a bonus for perfect attendance, which I always thought was bogus in high school.
That was the nerdiest award. This coming from a high school nerd, like that was a nerd.
Good job. You showed up. You were supposed to.
Right, yeah. Like really, there wasn't anything like your parents wanted to check you out or make you late for. Like nothing. Come on.
I love so-and-so has never missed a practice. You're kind of supposed to be there. Now, if you're talking about avoiding injuries, that's one thing, durability. Two from Jim Phillips.
Okay.
Again, John said it first. Financials are going to be at the forefront of all of this. It's going to be the main reason everybody thinks about this. I just don't think you expect them to lay it out the way that it has here. The access should expand to meet the increased investment from schools into their football rosters and programs. I'm going to say it again. The access should expand to meet the increased investment from schools into their football rosters and programs. Jim Phillips is sitting here telling us we can't afford this anymore, and the only way for us to get the money to do it is to get more teams in a playoff. You lay out two reasons that we should have this playoff. One, bubble teams. Two, we can't afford our rosters anymore. That's not the reason to expand to a 2014 playoff, folks. I don't care who you are, where you're from, what you do, what league you're in. If you're not in a league, how good your teams are, how good your teams have been, those are not the reasons. You can't convince me those are the reasons. You cannot sit here and tell me with a straight face, this is what's best. Now, maybe we should give Jim credit and say, at least he's not trying to sugarcoat this thing. He's basically telling us, we're poor, we need more. And by the way, agreeing to it only to make the rich richer. Because you're not begging for bubble teams if the rich aren't getting more teams in automatically. And we will get a year where an 8-4 South Carolina or Purdue or Michigan State are going to get into this thing. Why? We're all playing each other now. We can't all be undefeated. Are we not playing more conference games? I know Indiana just did it last year, but I'm not talking about the teams at the top. I'm talking about whatever it is, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9.
Said bubble teams.
No, these are going to be AQs.
Yeah, the ones that we get in, yeah.
So I am wondering why he would push for this, because it tells me that if 16 spots are taken and then maybe you say, what's ACC Big 12 going to get 2? That's 20. You give 1. I'm just using rough math here. It could be less. It could be more. I don't know. You give 1 to the G5. So you have 3 bubble spots. Or you have 16 gone. You give 3 each to the ACC and the Big 12. Can you imagine if 2 conferences say we automatically get 8 in, and the ACC, who had a team in the national championship game, is getting 3? And the Big 12, as proud as that conference has been over time, is getting 3. And I'm not saying one way or the other, deserve, don't deserve. How you would put that math together, we would probably need PFF or the Colley Matrix to figure out. I don't know it as far as the eyeballs and what they've won. And I would never argue that the SEC and the Big Ten don't bring in the most fans. They do. It's obvious. They generate the majority of this revenue, and that's why they're able to make the demands that they do. And from their perspectives, plural, no one should blame them. But I'm just thinking from a holistic college football perspective that you're sitting out, and we forgot Notre Dame. Because if Pete's on board, you know good and well they're telling him, y'all are in. We can't go into this thing saying Notre Dame's in every year. There's literally you can't do that. We're going to get a 6-6 Notre Dame at some time, folks. And they're just in? What is here's what I need to know for this 2014 playoff if we go to it. Because everybody's going to talk about qualifiers, automatic qualifiers. How do we get in? I need to know the D qualifiers. I didn't know what keeps you out. When do we draw the line and say, you know what, your 8 teams didn't win enough, therefore you're forfeiting one of those spots? Notre Dame, you got to at least get to 9.
9th place or 9th and ranked or 9 wins?
Don't know. 9. Just get to 9.
Just 9 something.
I was hoping for wins, but
okay.
You're right. I mean, is there do we think does it sound at all crazy that an 8-4 Notre Dame's in the top 24? Absolutely not.
No, that probably would be. Yeah.
Now, with this year's schedule, impossible.
Oh, correct. Right.
But there are other years in which they have a difficult schedule. We don't think they're going to sneak into 22, 23, 24 if we're just ranking the teams.
Especially if they know that the top 24 or whatever it will be in. I think you've seen it, especially in playoff rankings, that was James Madison or Tulane like 22, 23? No, but they knew that they needed to rank them somewhere to let them into the playoffs. So, all right, we'll put them there.
I understand the CYA here. You got to cover your rear end. But, like, in what year do we think that the Big Ten or the SEC, if we just took the top 24, are not going to have a large amount of teams in this playoff? If do we know a year that was bad? What was the one year that was really bad for the SEC? Was it 18, 17?
What, the one when Vanderbilt?
Was it
one
16?
Of the Franklin years?
Trying to look for the final
Georgia
rankings.
Happened to be down.
All right, let's just go 2016. Let's pull a random number here. 2016.
Okay.
All right, final rankings. AP. You had Alabama at 2. Oklahoma's not in there. You had LSU at 13, Florida at 14, Tennessee at 22, Auburn at 24. So there's 5. So your others receiving votes would have had no other SEC teams in. So that would have been a year that you're looking at saying, okay, we still get our teams in, though. Which, by the way, Auburn was 8-5. You subtract the bowl loss, 8-4. Tennessee, 9-4. They won their bowl game, so they were also 8-4. That's two 8-4 SEC teams in, and another that's gonna get in, which I haven't even gone to the standings yet.
Which had Florida at 6 in conference, Florida at 6-2, Tennessee, Georgia, and Kentucky all 4-4.
LSU 8-4 would have been in. All right, Big Ten. So you would have had Ohio State in, Penn State in, Wisconsin in, Michigan in. And we got to scroll down that would have been it. Your others receiving votes would have been Nebraska in 17, Big Ten or no? I believe so. We'll say Nebraska at 5, Iowa at 6, Minnesota at 7. But these aren't in the top 25. Those would have been your next teams. So you could do the same thing with the standings for the Big Ten and see what those would have looked like. I mean, this is feasible. I realize this is a little bit of a one-off in the last however many years, but this is going to happen. We're going to get a year like this for one of these leagues, and they're going to be 4 and 5 loss teams that are in because they're AQs.
And that's not considering Washington, that was 8-1 in conference. USC was 7-2 in conference. Oregon happened to be 2-7 that year. But if those teams, if you put those in Big Ten, like, all right, you get a couple more. But even still, there were still some teams like Oregon, USC, I think was 7-2. But that's in their conference.
Oh no! When did we start doing this? No, we can't do this. This can't happen. We're now listing college football seasons like basketball.
We who?
ESPN.com.
Okay.
I didn't even mean it that way, but we can't have the 16-17 college football season, folks.
Well, seeing as
just because you play a game or two in a year, don't include the year.
Well,
it's confusing enough as it is.
Seeing as how we're more than halfway through
January
when the championship is happening.
You get 2 games. Don't do that, John. We can't start doing this. It's annoying enough in basketball. It's the 16 season. If it finishes in 17, we can't do that. When did we start doing this? Nobody else does this, hopefully. Don't let this happen, folks. Don't agree to this. Call your local senator and tell them this cannot take place.
Put your foot down. It is annoying to see in the championship game for this past year, the 2025 season, that they had 2026 on the.
That's hard enough.
Right,
that the bowl year is the next year.
Yeah.
Because people say, "Oh, you're talking about when they won the 2011 national championship game." No. It's the 2010 Auburn team won the national.
Right.
Yeah, the 2011 BCS championship. No, it's the 2010. And now we're putting 16, 17.
Oh, boy.
I need to cut one of the political promos today. Hi, I'm Cole Cubelic, college football analyst. Put your foot down today for the dual year of the college football seasons. This can't happen. Call your local senator. Tommy Tuberville, where are you when we need you? This is where we need you right now.
Staring down both barrels if you have both years up.
Josh Pate, you want to be the commissioner? By God, step up right now and make this go away. If you have clout, make this go away. 2014 be damned. We need this gone now. We can't be referencing college football seasons with 2 years. This is egregious. You know what's going to happen next is people are going to see this and say, well, basketball does it, football does it, so everything should just be a dual year. College baseball is going to go to dual year here soon.
Oh, jeez. That'll freeze out some teams, but okay.
Well, Joey, who do you think is going to win the 26-27 World Series? Well, I don't know. They're two different ones. Which one? I don't know. I just figured everybody else is doing it. We'd throw them both in there, too. Just get all the years in there.
Hello, friends, and welcome to the 27-28 Masters.
That's it. Just throw all the years in there. Why are we doing this? All right, the Big Ten in 16 has nothing to do with 17. Would have had, what do we really think this number is going to be? 8? We'll say 7.
I'm thinking 7.
To be nice. Penn State 11-3, Ohio State 11-2, Michigan 10-3. That's 3. 4 would have been Wisconsin at 11-3. All right, let's be nice and say 5-6 or Nebraska and Minnesota both at 9-4. That's with Nebraska losing their bowl game. Okay, have some fun. You want Iowa at 8-5, Northwestern at 7-6, or Indiana at 6-7. Those are your next best 3 teams. One of them's getting in. And if you think it's going to be as simple as the records, no, sir. Because you know you're coming up with math. You know conference record has to matter here. If you're choosing between your own league, and those are the teams that are potentially going to get in, Nebraska and Minnesota were 6-3 and 5-4 in conference. Minnesota may be in this tournament at 5-4 in league play. And we're putting them in the 2014 playoff.
Well, that's what Jim Phillips said. Bubble teams. 7th, 8th, 9th in the league. You're a bubble team.
No, I think Jim Phillips is thinking about his teams that are actually like 10-2 that are not going to be automatic qualifiers to get in this.
Like technically Miami would have been?
Yes. Well, I think if they had 3, they would have been in.
3, yeah, but still.
There have been some. Florida State. They would have been in, though. We'll continue this conversation. Get your thoughts. Tweet in at Mac and Cube, 800-239-9569 if you want to get in. 800-239-WJOX. We'll continue talking 2014 playoff, where we're going. What should it look like? Are part of these parameters sounding better to you, worse to you? Spring weather in Alabama is unpredictable. You can always rely on a Train Home Comfort System, and during their Spring Unstoppable event, you can receive up to a $1,350 rebate on select Train Home Comfort Systems. Learn more and find a comfort specialist near you at Train.com. It's hard to stop a train. Back with more Mac and Cube right after this. All right, welcome back in. McElroy and Cubelic in the morning. Talking 2014 playoff. Should we get there? What should happen, I guess, now when we do, if we do? It's still an if. Feeling more like a win we get there in college football. You hear some of these guidelines and things that are being laid out of the reasoning behind it. As Ross Dellinger points out in his story, Jim Phillips, ACC commissioner, twofold rationale: include bubble teams that are deserving to compete in a national championship, and the access should expand to meet the increased investment from schools into their football rosters programs. That almost sounds backwards to the point of, hey, we're putting so much money into our roster, we deserve to play for a playoff spot. It almost comes across that way. The access should expand to meet the increased investment from schools in their football programs. We're a $40 million roster. We deserve a playoff spot.
Well, handle your business in the regular season.
Not the way that should go.
You play to win the games.
No, you pay to win the game.
That's
Apparently.
insane.
That's what he's wanting.
It's insane.
Jim Phillips was quoted in the story saying, when you're leaving national championship contending teams out of the playoff, you don't have the right number. We lived through it. We suffered through it with Florida State when the field was 4. Okay, we're not at 4. That is an irrelevant conversation right now. That has nothing to do with this. I'm not sure why that would be brought up. We're going to talk BCS next and Auburn being left out in 04.
Right. Well, those are computers, though. This is different, whole different.
We don't know if they might be bringing computers back. We don't. That's the thing. We don't know how these 24 teams are going to be selected
at all.
And I can just tell you that if you think that putting whatever automatic amount in, if it's, let's just say 20, those next 4 are not going to be easy choices.
No.
Because think about it in any year. Like we just rolled off some of those teams. The rest of the top 24 is going to include teams that have multiple losses, don't look like an obvious college football playoff team. It's not going to be as simple as people think. Like I've told y'all, when I did the mock playoff selection, teams 1 through 4 were not very hard. 5, 6, 7, it got a little more difficult. The hard part was picking 16, 17, 18, 19. Because it's ring around the rosy.
Right.
You're on a hamster wheel. Well, Damien and I would be arguing. They lost 3 games. Like, well, yeah, they lost 4. Lost 2 on the road. You lost 2 at home. Like, what? It literally, you're running in circles trying to pick these teams and who's better. There is no obvious better choice when you get past 15. Hell, when you get past 8, there might not be many obvious choices. How many times have we talked about? We've talked about this in 12.
Yep.
There's probably only 4 or 5 teams that need to be in this. And none of us looked at Miami last year and said, just because y'all didn't know how to figure out your championship game, didn't think we looked at Miami and said they can't win a national title.
Right.
No one was saying that. Y'all are the ones that left them out of something. That's the part here that's hilarious, is you're complaining about teams getting left out. You left them out.
Yep.
The playoff didn't leave them out. The playoff got them in, and they proved that they should be there, which by default would probably say they deserve to be in your ACC championship game. But here we are. We got to get to 24. And the regular season is going to take a hit. And there's a part of this that we haven't discussed yet that I'm not sure. We always do this. This is what we're famous for in college football. Well, let's let them transfer anytime they want. What's the worst that could happen? Let's make a 4-game redshirt rule. What could they do?
They found a way.
They sat out 3/4 of a season.
They found a way.
Whoops. Let's just let them get NIL. Where could that go wrong? Collectives. Now, all we want is this 2014 playoff to hit. And what these coaches are not thinking about because of the, quote, access, which is great. Banners, good. Brag sheets, brag books, whatever it is that you need, resumes. Here's the flip side of that, Damien. What happens when these coaches don't make a 2014 playoff?
Fired.
What's that conversation? Hold on. It's been 3 years, and you haven't been into a 2014 playoff?
Pressure.
We're on to the next one.
Yep.
So the pressure, even though I think a lot of things are now going to be excused or maybe even recused because you got in for a year or 2, when you don't, that's when things are going to look really different, and that's the part that I'm not sure people are thinking about.
Correct.
because we're looking at this as inclusion. It's one of our favorite words when we talk about playoff expansion and all the teams that are going to get in and these coaches keeping their jobs and look what we did and the accomplishment. Nobody's thinking about what happens when you don't make this playoff. And that's not going to look great for some of these coaches.
Like, imagine if you're Mike Norvell right now. Say you got left out when it was 14. You hadn't sniffed 12. And at 24, you still haven't made one. Those are going to be some tough conversations.
Yes. People are going to want to know why.
Mm-hmm.
How have you not gotten in?
Or we could see potentially like in the NBA. Okay, you make the college football playoff a couple years in a row, but you don't make it past the first round. I will kick them out.
Yeah. I've been to the playoffs 4 years in a row, but I'm 0-4 in playoff games.
I think you just struck gold, John.
We're the NBA.
Let's have a play-in tournament halfway through the season.
I mean,
let's get to mid-October, and half of our teams get in right there. If we talk about how depth is a problem, you don't have to worry about it anymore. You can get, hey, minor league baseball does it.
That is true.
First half champion.
Yeah,
that is true.
Yeah.
Hey, remember, we have people tweeting in saying this sport gets this percentage in, this sport gets this percentage. So we want to be like the other sports. Let's just have halfway champions. Put them in.
Halfway champion.
Hold on a second. How did Baylor
win the
6-6 get in? Well, they started 5-0.
Now
won the first half of the Big 12.
They were in on October 12th. Sorry, we couldn't help it.
Now, to be fair, that would make all this talk of diminishing the regular season. That would make at least the first half
week
a lot more
zero
meaningful.
look a lot more fun.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
We're playing for a playoff spot.
In Ireland.
We're still trying to figure out who our starting quarterback is, but now we've solidified a playoff spot.
Oh, we got Auburn Mercer week 3. Yeah, playoff spot on the line. Trying to get in.
We need you to play, Coach. I played my 4 games. Yeah, but playoffs are on the line. I played my 4 games, Coach.
Yeah.
Sorry.
I need my eligibility, my red shirt rule. We don't even transfer window anymore. Well. I think you may hit something there. Let's get them all in. Let's get them in early. Instead of AQs, we have EQs, early qualifiers. It sounds crazy, but it's also crazy that we're talking about going to 24.
If you can enroll in college early, why can't you roll in the playoff early?
There you go.
That's a great point.
Early enrollees. Early qualifiers.
Had it locked in September. Hadn't played a conference game.
Early decision.
Yeah.
They're in.
Georgia's early decision.
Yeah, early signing day.
Yeah.
Early enrollees. Yeah.
Here we are complaining about who's going to sit out for Ohio State, Michigan, Alabama, Auburn because they're already in the playoffs. We're going to be sitting out early November games.
Brother.
Halloween weekend, starting quarterbacks on the bench. Why is Byron Brown on the bench? Well, they're already in. He doesn't need to play anymore.
Yeah.
We're saving him.
Third Saturday in October. Who's playing? I don't know. We already made the playoff.
Right.
Doesn't matter.
Bro, that's – and then when you were talking earlier on the automatic qualifiers, like if we're getting 6, 7 teams in respective conference, there's just no way you can sit here and tell me that Minnesota in 9-4 is a playoff team.
In 24 it is.
Like
We're about to.
That's no.
Think about these discussions that we feel uncomfortable having right now, and that is last year's JMU, last year's Tulane, because of where they're ranked. We're only going to have more G6 teams that are 10-2, 11-1, undefeated. I'm not talking about the 1 or 2, but what happens to 3, 4, 5 of that level of team that are 10-2, maybe 9-3 with 2 losses to 2 top 10 teams, 1 loss in league on the road. You're going to say, no, they don't deserve to get in. It's not a very different conversation than we're having with the basketball tournament right now, where you're trying to say, this team's 25-3 and, they won the Southern Conference. Oh, well, we want a 17-17 Georgia Tech in instead of them. It's not a whole lot different than that. And we're only going to have more of those discussions of, well, they can't be in their G6. Well, they're 11-1 or they're 10-2.
Army Navy a couple years ago.
This past year, going into after week 12 when the regular season ended, just using AP rankings because they have no incentive to rank or G5 or whatever. James Madison was 19, North Texas was 20, Tulane was 21, Navy was 23. They all would have made the playoff.
Well, maybe. We don't know the exact parameters.
True, right.
Yeah.
But if you're just taking top 24,
Correct.
they would have most likely been in, or at least 3 of them.
And that right there is why we'll never just take the top 24 teams.
No.
Because it would be, quote, bad for business. And that's unfortunate.
Yeah.
Because in my eyes, now, before agreeing to this, I would need to know how you're going to do it. I believe the top 24 teams should get in, but I also need to know how you're picking those teams or computing those teams. I need to know. What's the algorithm? What's the formula? What are the parameters in which you're selecting? And by the way, I've said it before. I would like to include all of it. I've said it before. Again, we'll talk about it more on the other side, how these teams should get in. I have an idea that I think would satisfy everyone, even though some of y'all are coming full circle on things that you didn't want a decade ago. We'll discuss it next on Jocks. All right, welcome back in. McElroy and Cubelic in the morning. 7:42, Friday, May 15th, right here on Jocks. We had a long discussion about Lane Kiffin, this Vanity Fair article. Obviously, everything that meant for LSU, for Ole Miss. Wilson Alexander had a chance to sit down with Lane, have a further conversation with him on what came out from that article and maybe some of the fallout and what it's going to mean for him and his departure and now moving forward. Wilson, appreciate you taking some time to join us. Before we do that, this is a total sidebar to why we had you on, but I just want your thoughts on it. We spent the first couple segments of the show talking about this potential 2014 playoff. Just from a 1,000-foot view, where are you on the potential of college football getting there?
I just don't fully understand why we have to rush into this. Like, we've had 2 years of a 12-team playoff. Can't we let it marinate a little bit longer and just sort of see what some of the ramifications are of that? I mean, there's so much change that's happening all the time in college sports. Do we have to do everything at once? You know, I just, it seems a little bit like that's unnecessary to just jump into when we just haven't even experienced this format for very long. That's just sort of where I'm at with
No,
it.
I think it's totally fair. And I think a lot of people will be on board with you there. Wilson Alexander is a national college sports reporter for On3 with us now on the Higginbotham Hotline. You had a chance to talk with Lane Kiffin after the Vanity Fair article surfaced. A lot of people had some issues with things were said. What was Lane's tone with you as far as what his perception was leaving the Vanity Fair article?
Well, so let me clarify. I spoke with Lane ahead of the Vanity Fair story coming out. We had a sit down last Thursday in his office at LSU, and so we tried to turn around our story as quick as we could, but the Vanity Fair story came out first. And so then when the Vanity Fair story came out and he had that quote in there about those differences between LSU and Ole Miss and using segregation and race and diversity as claiming that as a difference, I then followed up with him and asked if there was, for additional comment, if there was any context he wanted to add to that, any thing in light of the response to it that he wanted to say, and then to be able to then include that in our story on him. So I don't know if that changes your question at all, but I feel like that maybe that's important for.
I appreciate the context, but yeah, still interested in just kind of what his thoughts were after seeing the way people reacted to it.
Yeah, it's when he sent me some audio messages that night. It was his form of communication about that. He seemed to be he was sort of maybe a little mystified because he apologized, but then he also kind of in a way doubled down, right? Like he was saying, this was a real thing that they dealt with there at times at Ole Miss, and that this was something that coaches before him had dealt with, and sort of seemed a little, not quite, sort of a little defiant, just a little bit about this being something that people would have to question. And also he kept sort of saying that this wasn't. He really emphasized that it wasn't a calculated recruiting tactic, and take that for what you will. That was as much as I was able to sort of hear from him about his response to what people thought about what he said.
How do you feel like the traditional recruiting is going for Lane right now? Because at Ole Miss, it was the portal king, and he got these guys in and had played other college football, which is great. It's nice. It's fine. But LSU is known for a place that dominates in traditional recruiting. Then fine in the portal too. But what is your sense of how that's going for him now that he's the head coach in Baton Rouge?
It's going pretty well, and it's also, he told me, like, one of the main factors in why he took this job. He was so successful in the portal at Ole Miss, but he seems to think there's more of a path to long-term success at LSU with that traditional high school recruiting. LSU has already signed or received commitments from 4 5-star recruits in the 5 to 6 months that he's been there, and they had one in the 6 years at Ole Miss. This is according to rankings from Rivals specifically, and that is, to him, sort of really shows the difference between the two places. One of the things that he pointed out was just a tweet from Lamar Brown, the number one defensive end, the crown jewel of their class last year. He posted something. It was a picture of goals that he had written for himself earlier in his high school career, and it was talking about how he wanted to win national championships and state titles and play for either Miami or LSU. Lane said, he goes, that there's so many more people in his mind who grow up wanting to play for LSU than grew up wanting to play for Ole Miss. He said that by and large, those portal kids didn't grow up wanting to play for Ole Miss. That's his argument anyway, as to why LSU was the job that was better for him long term.
We're talking with Wilson Alexander. He is a national college football reporter for On3. Had a sit down with Lane Kiffin a couple weeks ago. And one of the reasons you guys had this sit down was for him to further explain why he left Ole Miss. What was different about your conversation with him about some of the reasoning that he left that maybe you didn't go into expecting to hear, or that the general public's consensus may not be aligned with?
Hmm. Um, Trying to think. It kind of his reasoning was sort of what I expected, frankly, with when he kept talking about the recruiting differences and just the access to players and sort of those traditional things that have always made LSU um, a better job for most of the past 60 years or so. But what was interesting, maybe that would maybe stand out in that regard, is that I asked him, I was like, well, parity. There's more parity in college football than there ever has been. I mean, he just took this job the same year that Indiana goes and wins the national championship. So I said, does that really still make that much of a difference? And he said, not as much as it used to, but he said that it still does. He thinks that it still does, and I think that's probably an important maybe point to make with him is, that he does acknowledge that it is not the overwhelming difference that it used to be, but he thinks that it does still exist. Those are traditional advantages that LSU has of being the only power conference school in a talent-rich state.
Yeah, and it should. And it should allow you to build your roster in a different way than a lot of other schools would. Wilson Alexander joining us on the Higginbotham Hotline. I'm just curious your thoughts on the LSU roster right now, because McElroy and I debated it a little bit earlier this week. I don't know if I would say debated it, but we just had conversations on maybe some of the misperceptions that are out there a little bit of kind of what it is and where it is. What do you make of it? What do people in Baton Rouge think? Maybe what do people nationally think about where this LSU roster is right now?
It seems on paper improved from where it was a year ago, on the offensive side of the ball specifically, because defensively they were much better than they had been for the previous 2 years last season. But on offense, there had to be so much change that went on. And Lane actually, interestingly enough, said that he thought that they had some good offensive personnel at receiver and at quarterback, but that obviously a lot of those guys left, like the receiver talent that LSU had kind of later in the draft with Xavier Thomas and Barian Brown and Aaron Anderson and Garrett getting drafted. He thought there was some stuff there to work with, but those guys were mostly out of eligibility. So LSU had to go in and change things, and especially on the offensive line. And that's going to be, I think, where it's most interesting to watch and that we won't be able to know until game one is the offensive line really significantly improved from last year? And is LSU going to be more physical than it was last year, especially up front? Verge Osbury, who played football himself, and so he seems to know what he can. When he's looking at when he's watching a game, was so disappointed. Maybe is a good word for it. In LSU's lack of physicality in the Brian Kelly era. He and I have talked about that a few times. He mentioned it in this story as well, and he said that when he's watched practice, he's noticed a lot more physicality. They've even, I think, talking to people on the defensive staff, they would agree with that there's a little bit more physicality in practice. And we'll see that translates to LSU this season. That offensive line is going to have to be a lot more bullyish up front in order to be able to get the ground game going. That's such an essential part of the Kiffin and Weiss offense.
Do you have any concerns about the health of Sam Leavitt? I know he's been announced as cleared, but did not go very much a spring ball, had another procedure to have a pin removed. Some people are not counting that as a surgery. I'd like to know magically how you removed it without surgically going in to get it. But
yeah, right.
I actually have concerns about it just because you weren't healthy enough to practice, and you've had more procedures since to be able to repair things. I don't know how this is just a guarantee health heading into the season. I know he should be fine, but we don't really know that, I don't feel like.
Yeah, I would agree with you. I think that there should be, at this point of the year, sort of maybe a healthy or mildish level of concern, sort of like a cock your eyebrow and sort of pay attention to whatever's going on there to see if your concerns can be assuaged in the preseason, because that's when we'll be able to know if Sam Leavitt's really practicing fully with the team for the first time since he's gotten to LSU. And that's so it's not just that you're bringing in a new quarterback into this offensive system. You're bringing in a new quarterback. You've got a host of new receivers. You've got entirely new, pretty much, other than the center, for the offensive line. You've got so many different pieces that he hasn't been able to work with. And so I don't know. And my concern is probably with all of that. Like, if the health, I don't know for sure whether or not like he just isn't going to be good to go come game one. Lane Kiffin said that he's going to be cleared this summer, and that he'll be able to be full go at the start of preseason camp. And so, yeah, maybe the foot and everything is fine and he's healthy enough, but also, okay, he's had a fairly limited amount of time with a new offensive staff and a new players around him to get chemistry and to get on the same page with everything. And I think my concern is, okay, how long is that going to take to show when the season starts?
Wilson, great stuff, man. Appreciate the time today. Always good catching up. Excellent work with this conversation and story on Lane Kiffin. Look forward to having you back soon.
Thanks for having me. Y'all have a good one and a great weekend too. Same
to you. Wilson Alexander joining us on the Higginbotham Hotline. You can follow him on Twitter at WHAlexander_. Find his work at On3. He does a great job as a national college football writer there. Interesting write-up on Lane Kiffin. And as you heard, the timing of that, a little bit odd. Had to sit down before, but then went back and got extra commentary. And he actually spoke to Lane because he said he got audio messages. That's always how you can confirm that conversation was real. So we'll follow up on that conversation. Also have more conversation on a 2014 playoff right after this on Jocks. All right, when we come back, we'll hear from Kalen DeBoer, Alabama coach. A couple things that he laid down after the bowl game that we need to talk about. Some of these I had not necessarily heard about just yet. But you'll hear some quotes for him sitting down with Greg McElroy on future of his team, how they need to avoid more losses like that, certain players, what he expects from them, specifically on offense, and the adaptation of that offense heading into this season, what that's going to look like, what that's going to be. 800-239-9569. You want to get in, tweet in at Mac and Cube. You can text into the show as well. 205-834-9450. 205-834-9450. When we come back, we'll talk a little bit more about the 2014 playoff, get your response to that, and a little bit of Alabama football and Kalen DeBoer next on Jocks.